This video will contain major spoilers for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, so if you're not caught up to the latest episodes, be sure to do that before you go ahead and jump into this video. But let's get started. Hey guys, in this video, I'll be showing you how to make every single character that appears in your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1. Now, I've been going week by week as new episodes have dropped and making characters from that, so this will be a giant compilation video of all the customs from those videos put into one convenient place so you can watch it start to finish. So let's relive your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in today's video. Alright, we'll start things off with Peter Parker and Aunt May, as well we should. For Peter Parker, I used just this regular brown hair. It's come in tons and tons of places. The head comes from Egon from Ghostbusters, which is a relatively rare part now, but it is the best part for those round glasses. Now, the torso is pretty interesting because, of course, in the show, it's not quite these colors or design, but this is the closest that I was able to find in my collection, so if you have a better recommendation, let me know down in the comments. That being said, it's just a very, very common torso from Lego City. It's come in tons and tons of sets. Then, of course, gray legs finish out the figure. And for Aunt May, we actually used the head and flipped around torso from Yaz from Jurassic World with some long brown hair that's come in tons of places and some light blue legs for jeans that have also come in, you guessed it, tons of places. Now, seeing Doctor Strange literally right off the bat in this episode was super cool, and to see that Peter doesn't even know who he is kind of helps set up this version of the universe pretty well, and I'm really interested to see how it expands and grows. That being said, he's fighting a symbiote-looking monster, which we don't really know much about, and to be completely honest with you, I don't love the design of the symbiote that I came up with here. I just don't think it's among my strongest ever, and that's why I didn't even include it in the thumbnail, but for completion's sake, went ahead and used a Venom head with one of the backpacks from the Outriders just to add some bulk to the back, with the flipped around torso from Knight Rider, black arms, black hands, the legs from, oh gosh, what is the name of that beast from the CMF? I'm sure someone in the comments will know. Then standing on 1x1 pieces to make it a little taller. Then for Doctor Strange, I used the Multiverse of Madness legs, torso, cape, and head, because I do think that that looks the most like what we saw here, but of course with yellow hands for his yellow gloves, and the Infinity War style hair for Strange that gives you the white on the sides that definitely matches best what we see in the first episode. Here we've got Nico, and when I saw her design for the first time, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna make this with the blue hair and the blue lipstick? But thankfully, I dug around through my entire collection and found some really great parts to use. The Moradi from Star Wars, from the Galaxy's Edge set, has this black hair with the blue dyed ends, which literally works perfect for this. And then the Elf Bard from D&D works perfectly to get the blue lipstick, so that works great. Then, of course, you'll use the torso from MJ from Spider-Man, although I think it's been used in other places, with black legs and then, of course, matching hands to finish off Nico's design. Now here we have the main attraction, which of course is Spider-Man, and I love the way that this turned out for the homemade suit from this universe. Now the legs come from the soccer players that have come in several different sets, and when they do come in sets you kind of get to army build them because they're like giant soccer sets, but of course I used black hips there to make them look a little more accurate to the show. The torso is flipped around, but it's just a regular city torso. It's been in tons of places. We've got red arms. I used the handcuff trick where you take a pair of handcuffs and cut the chain off, then put the handcuffs back on for his web shooters. Of course, you'll see the backpack here is a black parachute backpack that comes from the CMF Spy. Then, of course, when we flip it around, I used black gloves and the head from the Mighty Micro's Scarlet Spider for the final look. Now, of course, you could use the Scarlet Spider head from the official figure, but I know how rare that is, and there aren't a ton of them out there, and when they are, they're very expensive. So the Mighty Micros version is a little cheaper to find, and hopefully, if you don't already have it, it won't cost you too much to hunt one down. Alright, next we've got Harry Osborn. This was a lot of fun to put together. Of course, he's got that green suit, so I used dark green legs with this torso, which I got from the Lighthouse set, but apparently it's been in a lot of places once I researched it, so that's really good. Hopefully it won't cost you too much. The head is actually interesting because it's been used on 3 different figures, but all from like army builder type sets and things of that. So it was in the D&D set, the giant set. It was also in the soccer set that I mentioned earlier, and it was also in a Harry Potter set that had a bunch of characters in it too. So Not a super uncommon head in the fact that it's come in a lot of places that were army builders, so hopefully you will be able to track one down. And then the hair here comes from Abby Yates from the 2016 Ghostbusters, although that's been used in other places as well. Okay, folks, up next we've got Pearl and Lonnie, both really interesting characters to make and build for this. So for Pearl, I really liked using this skirt piece that came from the old Clone Troopers back in like 2008, 2009, because I think that really helps add a lot of layer to her design here. But of course, underneath we've just kind of got those bluish legs with the yellow torso and arms, which surprisingly is not as common as you might think. Then, of course, the head comes from the Pharrell set with all those different heads and all that. Then the hands match with black hair. The head for Lonnie also comes from the Pharrell set, crazy enough. Then, of course, I used this torso from Lego City. It's come in some other places like a GWP at one point with gray legs, matching hands, and the hair from Mordo from the Sanctum Sanctorum. Now, Mordo's hair is longer than Lonnie's in the show, but I do think that the dreadlocks look works really well for the cornrows, so I do think it's our best option, although the styles don't quite match in terms of length. And finally, to round out episode 1, we've got Norman Osborn. And I really love the design in the show where they went with the character, and it seems like they're really building him up to be pretty menacing, which of course I love as well. Now, for this, I used the legs and torso from Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, with the head from Rhodey from Iron Man and the Avengers and all that, with some swept back brown hair to finish the look, which I think actually translates really well from the screen into Lego. Okay, so now that brings us into episode 2, where we've got Peter's internship friends, and this was really interesting. Pretty crazy. We've got Asha from Wakanda, who is actually from the comics, hasn't appeared on anything on screen in Marvel yet, so this is her on-screen debut, which is pretty cool. Then, of course, we've got Amadeus Cho, and I love what they did with the character so far here. I don't know if we'll get to see him Hulk out or not, but the show did just get confirmed for 3 seasons, so maybe over the course of the show. Anyways, the torso comes from Professor Frink from The Simpsons, of course. The legs come from Dr. Wu from Jurassic World, and speaking of Jurassic World, the hands, head, and hair all come from Kenji from Jurassic World as well. I've skipped over Asha over here because I was getting so excited about comic book lore. Used the same hair for Mordo that we just mentioned before. Then, of course, the head comes from Shuri from Infinity War. The torso and legs come from Claire Deering from Jurassic World with the matching hands. Then, of course, as we come over here to Jean, I just kind of threw something together here. I used the long swept brown hair as well as the Princess Leia head. Then, of course, this is a Jurassic World torso with matching hands and blue legs to finish the look. Alright, so up next we have Dr. Whitman and Dr. Carla Connors. Carla Connors, of course, being a gender-swapped Kurt Connors for this universe. Who knows if we'll see her become the Lizard later in the show. That would be crazy. And then, Dr. Whitman is actually, in the comics, the Wizard who's a frequent Fantastic Four villain. So, kind of interesting here that they're setting up a lot with these Oscorp characters. Anyways, for Dr. Whitman, I used the hair and head from the character Gunnar Eversole from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Then he does have his own lab coat in the show, but not only was I running out of lab coat pieces, but I don't really have any that are white lab coats with like green underneath. So the next best option I used was this torso from Mole Man from The Simpsons, which I thought was kind of funny, right? Mole Man from The Simpsons, Mole Man, the Fantastic Four villain, the Wizard. See what I did there? Then I put matching hands, and since he appears a little shorter than everybody else, I used mid-sized legs. For Carla Connors, the legs come from Dr. Frink, of course, from The Simpsons. Then this torso is just a generic Doctor torso, I believe, from Jurassic World, if I'm not mistaken. Got a blue glove on one hand, as we see in the show. The head comes from MJ from Spider-Man, and of course, to finish it all off, we've got a little hairpiece there that has the tie and all of that good stuff. And finally, we have Butane, who is really interesting because he's a very obscure Marvel Comics character, and the version that we got in this is definitely more like a grounded New York City version than the comics. He's much more cosmically charged in the comics. But that being said, really cool to see him make his debut here. And for this character, I went ahead and used dark gray legs and dark gray arms with the handcuff trick mentioned earlier, with black hands, a torso from the foot soldiers from the TMNT line, and of course a welder's mask to finish the look. First we have Speed Demon and Maria Vasquez, who of course in the comics is Tarantula. Now it was really cool to see their interpretations here, and it was really interesting to go ahead and make the figures, because I assume you're caught up with spoilers by the time you made it to the point in this video, but I used the Doc Ock head for Speed Demon because of like the visor he wears, but then just a couple episodes later, Doc Ock actually shows up. So, you know, I make these figures as I'm watching the episode, and, you know, I don't really know what other visor head I would use for Speed Demon, so let me know what you think in the comments. But regardless, I gave him this flat top blonde hair with this torso that came on Knight Rider, as well as one of the criminals from Spider-Man Homecoming with dark blue arms, tan hands, and then these dual molded legs from the werewolf character from the collectible minifigure series, or actually it's like the wolf costume person, but that way you go ahead and get the blue on top with the gray on bottom that kind of represent like his speed boots. Is it perfect? Not quite, but it's about as close as we're going to get here, and I dig that quite a bit. Now, for Maria, I went ahead and used this hair, which came on Red She-Hulk back in 2017, so admittedly, it is an uncommon piece, but it is perfect for those red highlights in her hair. The head is the 2015 era Black Widow head, with the torso from Lex from Jurassic Park, tan arms, the handcuff method, where we take a pair of Lego handcuffs and cut the chain out of the middle to give some bulk there, with silver, or rather gray hands to kind of show, like, you know, the power-ups that she has on her hands, and black legs to finish out the figure. And our only other new character in episode 3 was Big Donovan. Kind of crazy to see where they're going with the Lonnie storyline. And at first when they introduced Lonnie, I'm like, oh, he's going to be so nice. There's no way they could make him a villain. Because, of course, in the comics, Lonnie Lincoln becomes none other than Tombstone. But now it seems like they're going to push him into becoming Tombstone. It might take the whole series to get there. Who knows? But anyways, for Big Donovan, I went ahead and used the head from Mr. T from the A-Team Lego Dimension set years ago with this standard crook torso because I thought it fit pretty well, and of course black legs to finish the figure out. So episode 4 shows us just a real quick news clip talking about the events of Civil War that take place in this storyline. Of course, we don't really meet Captain America or Iron Man in action, but still we do see them, and I thought it'd be fun to pay homage. Technically, we see War Machine, Ant-Man, and Winter Soldier too, but let's just keep it focused on the main two, Iron Man and Captain America. The Iron Man is the comic book style Iron Man we've been getting in sets lately, so no upgrades made there. Then the Captain America is the classic one that came out in 2014, the only change being he has the original Sonic the Hedgehog legs to add some red, white, and blue to the legs and just bring a little more detail and color to the character. So now we'll get into Spider-Man's suit variants. Granted, he doesn't wear them for very long, but this is the Thor suit variant, which was really crazy to see. He's got yellow legs, kind of that bluish-gray hip piece. Then the torso is flipped around. It's from Jurassic World, from the T-Rex fossil set. Then he's got yellow arms, yellow hands, some shoulder armor there that's come in lots of places, a thin Thor cape, and you have to pay no attention to the back of the head because I did use the nail polish remover method to remove the mouth from this because I do think that this is the closest we can get. Yes, it does break the purist method, but you know, with limited piece options for yellow heads with visors printed on them, I do think that this was the best option. I thought that KB from the new Skeleton Crew set from Star Wars would work well, but of course on that head as well we would see the mouth, so it wouldn't work perfectly for this, so I went ahead and used this. But let me know what you guys think. Okay, so now for the Hornet Pack suit. I think that this one turned out really cool. It does break the purist method a little bit, but not in any irreparable way. So, these legs come from one of the Surfer characters from Lego City years ago. The torso, of course, comes from Killer Moth from DC with gray hands. Then this wing pack, it's come in several places, but not anytime recently, so it's kind of an older piece. The head is from Batman, but I used a piece of masking tape, if I lift the black helmet off, and just put some blue Sharpie on there to kind of make it look like the visor, because by the time you actually put the helmet on and swivel it into place, it actually looks pretty good and basically exactly what we see in the show. Okay, so we get one more alternate suit for Peter that doesn't ultimately get used all that much because it's a little too scary, and that is kind of like the Night Terror suit here. So we've got black legs, a black torso, black arms, dark gray hands, and the head from Magneto from Mighty Micros, which this is a very simple figure, but I think it works just fine. Then, of course, we get the white suit, which it seems like Peter's going to stick with at least for a little while here, and I think that this turned out awesome. Of course, it's just the anti-venom torso with white legs, and I used a Spider-Gwen head, but I took a very fine Sharpie and kind of traced along her pink eyes, so that way you do get the black instead of the pink. Yes, I realize I broke the purist method a lot in this video, but it kind of seemed like a necessary evil with all of the, upgrades and updates we got to suits and figures here. So sometimes you got to do it, but if you don't want to, break the purist method, I do think that the next best option would be a Spider-Gwen head, but you got to live with the pink lenses. Of course, we see Otto Octavius, and he's not quite Doc Ock yet, but using the 2014 Doc Ock hair, head, and torso are definitely the best move, and then those dual-molded legs with the yellow boots are perfect that came on the 2016 Doc Ock, as well as the Lego Fun in the City set back in the day. Today's episode. Okay, so we do see Thaddeus Ross, of course, in this timeline. He's not yet the president. I don't even know if he will become the president in this timeline, but to build him, I went ahead and used the legs and torso from 2012 Bruce Wayne with this generic head that came on tons of figures back in the late 2000s, but it's really a pretty common head, despite the fact it hasn't been in sets for quite some time. You should be able to get it pretty cheap, and of course, he's got swept back white hair to finish the look. Needless to say, Daredevil showing up is really exciting, and it's cool because his suit is kind of a mix match of his black suit from the Netflix show and, of course, the traditional Daredevil suit that has the horns and everything. To kind of meet it in the middle, what I did was use black legs with gray hips, gray hands, black arms, and this flipped around torso from Lego Star Wars. That way there's some crinkles in the suit, but also it's black and gray to kind of help with the highlighting colors we see in the show. I took a Captain America helmet and Sharpied it all the way black to go for that, and to give him the red eyes, but with the black on the side. I actually don't know if I'll be able to get the helmet off, but I used a Batman head, as you can see, that's like black underneath that shows the mouth exposed, and you can see right here, and then with the eyes, I took a piece of masking tape and Sharpied it red so that you see the red eyes underneath, but then from all the other sides you see black and there's no skin exposed except for the mouth, just like we see in the show. So I'm really happy with the way this turned out, and we do break the purist method to make that black helmet, but you don't actually have to ruin the Batman head because, again, I just used masking tape so you could just take that off when and if you're ever done with it. Alright, up next we have Scorpion, and for this I used these printed legs that have the pockets on them just to add some detail. Then the torso, the neck bracket, and of course the Scorpion tailpiece come from the Scorpion figure from years back. Sadly, we haven't had that for, oh my gosh, probably like 8 years or more now, but still, it is a really, really good piece and works really great for Scorpion in the show. Now, of course, he has gray hands on for the gloves, exposed arms, and this head from Lego Star Wars from a generic First Order Trooper, and for that all put together, it works really well for Scorpion from the show. Now, in a previous showcase, I actually showed Iron Man, but now he actually shows up. Now, this is really cool because in this universe, Iron Man's suit is very much based off of the classic comic books from the 60s, but that being said, we've never gotten a minifig that quite looks like that. The Mighty Micros is as close as we've gotten, but the color scheme doesn't quite match, so to keep things simple, we'll go ahead and use the most recent version of comic book Iron Man from the Avengers Lego sets, just to keep things simple. But if you have the Mighty Micros Iron Man, I'm sure there's a way to work that around, but of course, then the helmet color wouldn't match, so to keep things simple, as I've said like 18 times now, we'll just use this Iron Man here. And finally, in the end of these 3 episodes, we see Chameleon. So the head I used here is actually Voldemort from Harry Potter. I think that works out really well with a jean jacket. I mean a leather jacket that comes from Mutt Williams from Indiana Jones. Although we've gotten other leather jackets over the years. I love Indiana Jones, so I love using parts from it. So the main new attraction in the finale episodes here is the new red and blue suit. Now, it's not too crazy compared to anything we've seen from Spider-Man in the past, but it does lend itself to a really easy Lego custom to make because the head is the regular MCU Spider-Man head we've been getting for ages now. The torso is also that same comic book Spider-Man torso we've been getting since 2021, and the legs are a little bit more hard to come by. They are from the Zombie Hunter Spider-Man from the Marvel CMF Series 1 in 2021, but to be completely honest with you, I'm only adding those because they are the most detailed add that we can do. If you just have the regular dual molded legs, those will work fine as well, but I do think that those CMF legs with the extra accent lines in the blue area do look a lot more like the show and really lend themselves well here. Now, we do see Doctor Strange in this episode as well, and I just wanted to make a little adjustment to how I did the Doctor Strange custom from the beginning of this showcase series. At that time, I used the regular goatee version of Doctor Strange, but this time around, I actually used a non-purist head. Whoa, I know, but I took a Tony Stark head, and I used the eraser method to take off the bottom of his goatee to give him the mustache. Now, in full transparency, I made this head a long time ago to use both for Howard Stark and for Freddie Mercury back before we got the classic Walt Disney head in the Disney camera set. There's also a new head in the Twilight set that I think would work really well for this, but considering I don't have either of those, although both are on the way to my collection, this is the best option that I have right now as of this video, so I would recommend, figuring out what you've got in your collection and deciding from there what makes sense for you. And finally, we've got the Scorpion, and compared to the last version of Scorpion, we only are adding a helmet this time around. For a quick refresher, though, we've got these legs here that have the pocket printing on them, the classic Lego Marvel Scorpion torso, as well as the neck bracket and Scorpion tailpiece. Then, of course, the head underneath I'll lift up, you can see comes from a First Order Trooper from a while back. You could also use the Jango Fett head, the Clone Trooper head if you wanted. I think that would work as well. But matching arms and gray hands there finish out the look. The only addition from last week is now the helmet, which thankfully the Resistance Troopers from the Star Wars sequel sets work out really well. That way you get the yellow visor over the eyes and the mouth is protected, just like we see in the show. So toward the end of the finale, we actually find out that Jean is none other than Finesse, who is kind of a deep-cut comic book character. She's the daughter of Taskmaster, and in this reality, she's working with Daredevil to infiltrate Oscorp. This is so crazy and so cool to see how everything's shaking out. But to build this, I used a flipped-around torso from Man of Steel General Zod with the same legs, arms, and hands. The head comes from Robin from DC with my haircut from Rex Dangervest. Of course, this is a little bit of a lighter brown. The Rex Dangervest one actually probably works out better, to be honest. Yeah, so let's go with that. The Rex Dangervest hair is what we'll use here. While technically not a new minifig, there was kind of a little blink and you miss it detail where we see a close-up of Lonnie's hands while he's on the phone, and they're starting to turn that gray tombstone color. So, of course, I used the same Lonnie design from before, but this time, of course, I switched out the hands for that light gray to show his transformation. So who knows what he'll look like the next time we see him. And while he doesn't have a speaking role, we do see the Watcher in the sky looking over Spider-Man and Doctor Strange as they're talking at the high school. So, of course, the Watcher minifig that came in the What If set from years ago, the Iron Man Sakaran armor, is definitely what we want to use here. And crazy enough, at the end of the episode, we actually also see that Peter's dad is still alive. I wonder if his mom is still alive too, but his dad being in prison was an absolutely crazy reveal at the end of the episode. That being said, I used one of these Arkham inmate torsos from the DC sets with tan hands and actually the head and hair combo from the Zombie Hunter version of Spider-Man. Sure, I get that this is literally Peter Parker's head, but we are talking about Peter's dad, and honestly, it kind of looks like what we saw in the show, so if it works, it works. Alright guys, well let me know what you thought of this series and these customs in the comments down below. Be sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future LEGO Marvel or superhero awesomeness, and I'll see you guys on the next video.